Hello and welcome, dear viewer, to my channel. Today in our video, I will tell you what stories people have sent me in the mail. I broke up with my girlfriend to avoid being left empty-handed. It's only a few more weeks until I get married, but I don't feel happy. I'm in a bad mood and confused. I was born into a traditional business family. After graduating from university, I followed in my father's footsteps, working as a manager for his company. My parents are very proud of me because I'm good-looking and talented, and I'm my father's successor. My parents have always set high academic standards for me and have even higher expectations for their future daughter-in-law. When it comes to women, I'm very realistic and want to know their backgrounds. Ironically, the person I eventually fell in love with was a girl that didn't have a pretty background at all. She and I met through a mutual friend. When I visited that friend in the hospital, she was there too. I noticed she was peeling fruit for my friend. She didn't talk much, but she was really gentle and politely answered my questions. I could tell she was very skillful by the way she peeled the fruit. I noticed she was quite reserved and rarely smiled. This sparked my interest, so I learned more about her through friends and other sources. She became an orphan when her parents were taken by a flood in the central region when she was 12 years old. She then moved to live with a relative. Later, she graduated from college and went to work. Her friends speculated that she was reserved and quiet because of the trauma in her past, calling her kind and sincere. I was sympathetic and curious after hearing her story, so I wanted to get to know her better. I had to text her for months to get her to open up more. I see something in her that I haven't seen in any of the girls I've dated. She is profound, gentle, and also really resilient. She would only inform me when she was sick and never complained about it. She goes to work during the day and at night works as a restaurant waitress. Sometimes I have to wait a long time for her to get off work to meet her. I saw her struggle and offered to support her, but she always refused. She said it's fine as long as I truly love her. She is young, healthy, and capable of earning money. She said if our relationship develops further and we have children together, she would stay home to care for them, leaving me to provide for her. I was happy to hear her say that, but I had to return to the reality that my parents won't accept her. When I told my parents about her, my father said he had known about it for a long time but didn't stop it. He said it's fine for a man to be in love. However, our marriage is not possible. My mother said she was an orphan and her family background was not good. Although she didn't have anything against that, she couldn't accept that I wanted to marry a girl who was completely inferior to me in every way, from family background to education. My parents then found a suitable girl for me. I had no choice but to listen to my parents and break up with her to be with another girl, as I would have to leave the house empty-handed if I didn't. My parents always keep their word. When I told her about it, she had a long pause before asking if I have considered it carefully. I was speechless and didn't know what to say, so I just apologized to her. She told me not to worry because that is the harsh reality, then said goodbye and left. I cried a lot that night because I really love her. My new girlfriend is very good to me, and my parents are satisfied with her. Our wedding will be held in a few weeks. I want to give it all up to be with the one I love, but I lack the courage to do so. Why didn't she stop me back then? If she cried and begged me to stay, maybe I would have had the motivation to leave it all behind and be with her. Is it selfish to ask my wife to share living costs with me? I wanted to split the bills with my wife, but she was upset and said I was selfish and petty. I'm curious how you and your spouse split the monthly living costs. My wife and I met through a mutual friend. I proposed and arranged for her to stay in New Zealand while she was studying abroad. She's a self-sufficient international student, not a rich kid like others. I got the papers for her to stay in New Zealand, and we got married in both Vietnam and New Zealand. Her family paid for our wedding in Vietnam. My parents paid for our wedding in New Zealand. My income was low as I was studying a master's at the time. Despite the fact that several people chased her, she still chose me. My parents bought us a house when we had a child. They also paid our kids' kindergarten tuition. After 5 years here, my wife said the weather made her feel depressed. So we moved to Vietnam for 2 years to live and work. When my child was about to hit first grade, we returned to New Zealand. When she started going to work, I told her to split the bills. In the past, I didn't mind it because she said she was depressed and only went to work for fun. Recently, her father came to New Zealand, and she was happier. Then I started feeling unfair since I was the one who had paid for everything since we got together. I said that if she stays at home with our kid, we won't need to split the bills. But if she goes to work, I will help her in taking care of our kid. And she will also have to share the living costs with me. She claimed I was selfish and petty, and that turned her off. She said that giving birth was her only responsibility, and forcing her to split the bills is just wrong. I often look after our child on weekends so she can hang out with friends. When she returned to Vietnam, I also asked my parents to take care of our kid. A wife's feelings during football season. When I was little, I couldn't understand why the big football tournaments were a joy to men, but not women. I disliked football tournaments as my father often drinks and smokes all night during that time. My mother usually has to clean up the mess that my father made before leaving for work the next morning. My family's meals become less happy as football tournaments come. Football was supposed to be a healthy sport. I'm now married, and my husband was not as bad as my father. However, when football season comes, I realize that it was not the real problem. The real problem is the dissatisfaction of the wife with her husband, not with football. My husband didn't want to take our children to the doctor when they were sick. He turned cold and heartless toward me. He hasn't done much to take care of himself and had sloppy personal hygiene. But when the football season came, he didn't miss any games. This feeling of heartbreak and disappointment is not because of football, but because my husband didn't care about his family during that time. I'm just a normal wife. My life isn't exactly exciting, but it's also not difficult. I believe that many people feel the same way. I understand that the main problem is our relationship, not football, and I will try to work it out. Just want to get this off my chest. I defended my cheating boss. My wife filed for divorce. My wife and I have been married for 2 years. We're financially stable and are generally happy together. However, recently we had an argument about my boss's extramarital affairs. I defended his infidelity. Then she filed for divorce. I'm 34 years old and work as an interior designer. I make twice as much as my wife. My wife is 32 years old. She is hesitant about having children even though my parents have been pushing her to. My boss's wife filed for divorce because of his infidelity. They were going through a rough patch over a year ago. My boss had just been promoted and had to frequently go out for drinks with clients. His wife took care of their small child and had no income of her own while my boss had to carry the financial burden alone. His wife did not sympathize and constantly demanded that he come home early, even though she knew her husband was in a difficult position. I told the story to my wife, hoping that she would share the same opinion, that if wives could not sympathize with husbands that are in the same position, then they should not be surprised if their husbands cheat. Seeing that my wife did not respond, I assumed that she thought the same thing. 2 days later, out of the blue, my wife gave me an already signed divorce petition. I was so upset that I raised my voice when asking her whether she had cheated with someone else. She looked so calm, almost as if she'd been preparing for this moment. My wife said, "If you want to have multiple affairs, feel free to do so. Just try not to hurt your wife and children. There's no excuse for cheating if you're married. If people are no longer compatible, then they should break up. Why should a man hurt his wife and children and bring shame upon them? Why should he lose his dignity? I don't want children because I've lost faith in you. I'm afraid that my unborn child will suffer the same fate as your boss's kids, having a corrupt and immoral father. Anyone can be single and do what they want without hurting their family. But if they settle down and cheating occurs, it's no different than dying." I refused to sign the divorce application, and both sides of the family tried to persuade her otherwise, but she's still adamant. I earn money for my family and do the chores. I don't gamble or drink alcohol. How is that not enough to be a decent husband and father? Is my wife overreacting? Write in the comments what you think about these stories. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video if you like it. Also put a bell so you don't miss new videos. See you soon.